right, so there we are. Welcome everyone, and so glad you all came to see this talk. Thanks Tech020 for having me at this conference. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we turn buzzwords into real products at our software agency, Lively. So a little bit of background: we are Lively, and we call ourselves Architect and Online. We're a small company of 19 people now. 19 people near Amsterdam Sloterdijk, so we're in Amsterdam. It's a very young team, people from about ranging in age from 20 to 31, so a very young group of people. And we create software products for our clients. So we have multiple clients, and we use Scrum technology or methodology to find out business requirements and find out optimizations for companies, optimize their processes, but also help out corporates with their front-end development, for instance, or specific topics. And we do startups and scale-ups and help them kickstart their project, and from both business concept to design to front-end development and back-end development and the operations part. So basically full service from start to finish. So what I wanted to talk about today, these are the people. I'll put the slides on GitHub so you can look at this further. It's a very young group. And my name, by the way, is Peter Peerdeman, and I'm the lead technology at the company. We run it with 3 partners. So the context is we're building big full-stack applications for our clients. And I wanted to talk with you about buzzwords, because I heard plenty today. Maybe some others who heard some buzzwords come around today. So we're going to do a little bit of buzzword bingo. So let's see if we heard this. Omnichannel today, it's something, maybe not so much. Devops, something that is a hot topic, of course. Continuous delivery, microservices, big data, well, all these kind of things. And it kind of puts me on edge sometimes, because for me such a buzzword does not really exist until I've installed this technology on my laptop and actually did something useful with it, or found an application where we can help a customer to actually do something useful with this technology. What I wanted to talk about today is our sort of response to these kind of buzzwords, or how we use this technology to actually do something. So if we're talking about omnichannel, I don't like to talk about omnichannel, but I like to talk about React and React Native and how we use this front-end technology to create web applications and mobile applications. When we talk about DevOps, I talk about Ansible and Docker and how we use these scripts to create Docker containers that we can easily deploy anywhere in our ecosystem. When we talk about continuous delivery, we talk about NPM linting and testing scripts that continuously run on each commit that we do to the code on GitLab. When I talk about microservices, I talk about Node.js applications with GraphQL. It's also a very interesting topic that I'm talking a lot about. Who here has heard of GraphQL? Just show of hands, maybe a little bit. Okay, so this is good. Then I'm going to explain it. It's going to be like a technical deep dive talk. So I hope this is not a problem. And when we talk about big data, then I'm talking about like a NoSQL storage like Elasticsearch. Something that we did for one of our customers. So it turns these things into real things that you can actually work on and base your business on or something. All right, so microservices. I'm going to pick 3 of these topics and tell a little bit something what it means to us. So microservices for us means is GraphQL, and I'm a big fan of this. And basically, how I would explain it when someone asks me what is GraphQL, it's a query language for APIs, and this fits nicely with the buzzwords and the super fluffy talking about technology. But I'll try to give an example here. So, how many of you know what the REST protocol is, or a REST API? Some hands. A REST API. Someone ever used this? Request response. Yeah, I see one hand over there. Okay. Maybe you guys know what a REST API is? Yes, you know it? Okay, that's good. Okay. So bear with me. We're talking about GraphQL. And imagine you're creating an application, and in this application we want to show the data of some user. We want to show the post the post that this user created, and we want to show the followers of this user, kind of like a Twitter application, for instance. So in a full REST world, where you've created a nice RESTful application, you would have to do 3 calls. So you can see what's happening over here. There's 3 calls being made. One is to the /user/ID to get the user's information. The second will be the /user/ID/posts to get the post of that user. And the third call that will be made to the backend would be the followers of this user. And that's all fine and dandy, but if you're on a very slow connection and you have a mobile phone, you have long latency to get your response, it will take a while and it generates a lot of requests. And yeah, we want to optimize this. So if we compare this to GraphQL, you can see this. You see that there's one request being made to the server, and you can actually see that there's like a little query language on top here, where you see we're going to query a specific user, and from this user we want to show the name. So not the rest of the information that's usually inside this REST client, just the name, and we want to see the posts that are related to this user. And from these posts, we just want to see the title. Adding to this, we also want to see the followers. We only want to see the last 3 followers. So you create a query which just gives back this data that you actually want to show inside your front-end application. And bear in mind, this front-end application could be anything, right? It could be your web application, could be your mobile app, using the same API to deliver different kinds of sets of data. So you completely separate your back-end development from your front-end development, which is like freaking awesome. Yeah, we basically just went for it. So this technology came around. I saw this and I thought this is a real good opportunity to step in. It would fit perfectly for the kind of APIs that we're creating with a lot of different backends, a lot of different front ends, and fast iteration cycles while creating the front end. So we just went for it, and luckily I could wipe the sweat off my head when these guys followed suit. So Facebook, of course, is the originator of the GraphQL technology. We have GitHub, who now have their public APIs, also GraphQL API. Airbnb, Shopify, Pinterest all have like at least use their GraphQL stuff internally. So there's a lot of support from the community as well. So I don't know if, I'm curious, did you see any demos today? Niet allemaal tegelijk? Okay, so you're going to see your first demo today, because I think this is really important at the tech conference. Okay, so not jump into the code immediately. Let's see if I can go to graphical. Okay, so what's very important with introducing such a new technology, with REST you have a lot of tooling that helps you debug or find out about how you can use your REST API. And the GraphQL team did an amazing job at making sure they delivered this tool up front when they introduced the technology. So this tool is called Graphical. So for anyone who has ever tried to explore an API and find out the documentation of an API, you know that it's always horrible, right? I can see some hands for people who've seen horrible documentation. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. So what I would like, I started as a front-end developer, now full-stack developer and technology lead. But what I would have loved when I started was this. So watch this. This is going to totally blow you away. Okay, so we're now in the query creator. And when I do autocomplete, so I press Control and spacebar, I can actually see what I'm allowed to type. So I can see I create a query, and maybe a little bit of background. We're now talking about an API that is the API for a language institute, where we create a full information system for them, and they link people who want to take a Dutch course with a location and a teacher, and they plan this out. So that's the context for this application, but I'm just going to show the backend because that's the most interesting part. So you create a query, and now we can see what we can actually query in this API. So we can see over here. Can everyone read this properly? We can see we can get some exams, or we can get some invoices if you're allowed to. We can see some modules. So maybe we can see at least some exams that are available, and from these exams we can see what kind of information is actually there. So of course this would also be possible in REST. Let's see if we can just retrieve something, so you at least see something. So, for instance, you have Toets A1 luisteren is one of the courses. But what if we want to create a little small application that shows more than this? We can say, oh, maybe we also want to see something about the groups that are being planned at this moment. And we want to see the ID of the group. I don't want to get into privacy problems here. ID, and maybe we want to see some information about the people that are actually inside this inside this group. So the learner users, for instance. And from these learner users, I also want to see the ID, so we don't get into names and stuff. And we only, so when I was preparing the demo, I pressed play here, and I crashed the server because it retrieved all of the groups that were ever created with all of the users that are in the system. So not going to do this moment. I'm going to limit it to 10 groups. And if we play this, you can actually see we get everything back nice in one nice packaged API. And we see all of the IDs of the people who are in this group. Question?
So you are retrieving one of the exams. Would it always be the same one? Because the first time and the second time you heard it, I think it was the same.
It depends on what the sorting is at this moment. So I don't actually know if we can sort by. So we can say how we sort the API. So it might be on name or on when it was created, or so these parameters you can configure yourself. So the fun thing is that this was not this documentation was not written. This documentation was generated from the fact that in GraphQL you have to strongly type each of the inputs and outputs of the system. So this means you cannot create a GraphQL interface that is not documented in this way and explorable in this way. So you can imagine that the sort of the explorativeness or the discoverability of your API and finding out what data is in there is like a magnificent developer experience for anyone who's connecting to your APIs. So I'll leave it at that. It's very cool. Please check it out. It's super nice. All right, next up, omnichannel. So what is omnichannel? For us, omnichannel is React and React Native. And when people ask me what is React Native, I would call it a JavaScript app component paradigm. So this might also fit nicely with the buzzword bingo. But for us, it's a way of combining our knowledge of JavaScript or using our knowledge of JavaScript to create applications for both the web and for mobile. All right, so what's great about React? There was someone who had a discussion with who hated React, so I hope I can convince him with these points. So it's a JavaScript framework, and we're all big fans of JavaScript. We actually use TypeScript now, so for the people who are like a bit on the fence about JavaScript, trust me, it's getting a lot better when you use TypeScript. You have type safety and you have compile time checking. So it's starting to look like a real language like Java and all these other strongly typed languages. So and you can still do functional programming, which is maybe for me best of both worlds. Developed and maintained by Facebook, so we know there's a big community behind this. And one of the most important parts that I found of React is that it's small components, single responsibility. And for me, all the frameworks previously to React did not really adhere to this principle already. So you create a lot of files, you create a lot of small components, but this really helps getting like a single responsibility for each of the functionalities that you create. And they have this really nice way of passing data to your components, which also allows us to onboard people very quickly. We can just say, use this, you join a team and you create just a small part of the application instead of having to know the complete application before you can do anything. All right, so now React Native, which is also pretty new now. It's the React paradigm with a native component. So we're creating a mobile application for iOS and for Android. And instead of it, who knows Cordova? Everyone ever used Cordova? It was horrible. We used it before because we were web programmers, so we tried it. It was horrible. And we created some apps with it. And in the end, they were okay, but it's not the same experience as you would develop a native application. Now we're using React Native, which actually creates native components in your interface, which are with the business logic still in JavaScript. So, okay, that's a mouthful. But for instance, if we're creating an application in React Native now, we have Android navigation on the Android platform and iOS navigation on the iOS platform. And you will just not notice the difference, so you don't have to fake it inside a web application, which is great. And small componenting responsibility, again, also for mobile development, this is a big plus. It's so yeah, for me, it's a very sort of new way of thinking about how to structure your application properly. Render predictability and the community support. That's just yeah, if you load a web view, you never know if you're going to run into any CSS bugs or something. When you load native components, you know for sure that it will render the same way every time you open the application. All right, so to get a little bit more back into the real world, you have two applications. On the left side, you see actually a screenshot of the application that we just saw the backend from. So it's the Language Institute, and we're talking about lesson materials. And you see a table of lesson materials. And I want to pay special interest to the search bar that you see over here. Going to look at the search component for React. And we're going to compare it to an app that we create on the right side, which is a React Native application. It's a chat application, and it also has a search bar on top. So I thought that was an interesting paradigm to see how different are these parts to each other. So I did not ask who knows React, right? Anyone ever worked with React before? Yes, we have at least one. Okay, so you can at least follow me. I just wanted to have some code on the screen and like a real editor, so we can say that this conference at least had some code as well. All right, so there's a lot of React stuff happening over here, and I won't get into that completely, but I'll try to explain it from like pseudo level. So what in the end happens is that this search component is being rendered, is being called somewhere, and a render function is called at the end to actually show this component in the screen. So we're going to go on the left side first. So just focus on this for a second. So this is the React, the web part. So it would be JavaScript that you would type in the browser, go to application, press enter, and it loads inside your Chrome browser. So you can see over here we have an input icon, and we nest an input component in there. And this input component will actually render like an HTML input element at the end. And we pass it some parameters, and we can see that we have an on key down. So at the moment you press you press the keyboard, the on key down function will be called, and this is a function that's defined on top. And it will actually, need to see what I wanted to show, is activate the search, this.search. And now we're going to look at the other code. So now we're talking about the application, the mobile application. And now you can see that it also has a render function. Quite similar actually. And you can see that it's a view and it's some nested views, but in the end it also has a text input. So this doesn't actually render an HTML input, but this actually renders, for iOS it renders a UI text label, and for Android it renders a, I forgot how this was called, but it was something like a text field or something. But it also has these properties, and the minute we change something in this text, we go to the onText input handler. Well, it's called differently, but it's actually quite the same. It also sets the state with the search string. So you can imagine that our team of programmers was quite efficient in React already. We switched to this technology, and now all of a sudden I can happily announce that we now create apps again since the last time that we stopped creating apps because it was so horrible. So yeah, that's a good thing. Any questions on this, or just go ahead, because I just have 40 minutes and I've got so much nice stuff to show you. All right, so the demo was the search bar component, React versus React Native. As you can imagine, if you know JavaScript, then you can work in both teams. And actually, people join our company as interns as well. So recently, the first MBO interns even started. So mostly HBO how do you say this, HBO students, applied sciences, do internships, and we have some university internships as well. So from all levels, but even on MBO level, this person started working on React Native component on his first day, and actually was able to deliver like a real production code that gets merged into master within the first week. So that was really nice. All right, and now DevOps. So what's DevOps for us? For us, DevOps is Ansible and Docker. And what does Docker mean for me? It means repeatable and robust server installations. So what this means is, if you would not use Docker, you would register a server somewhere. You would log into the server and you would install Node. And you would install maybe an image resizer, GD, or you would install everything by hand, or maybe you would have a script that installed all of these things by hand. And now we can sort of optimize this process so we know for sure that if we install an application somewhere, that it looks the same on each of the servers where we place it. So I found this great image, and I don't know if any of you know Docker a little bit or know Ansible. Any hands for Ansible or Docker? All right, so this is the ops kind of view. So this is the perfect example for what Ansible is and what Docker is. I'm not going to do a complete run through of how Docker works, because that might be a bit sort of overkill and a lot of technological stuff. But you can almost see it as wrapping your application that you're writing. So our Node.js GraphQL backend application, and all of the software that we need to run this application, we package this inside a container. So the container is one of these thousands of these containers that are running on this ship, or you can also call this Amazon, or you can call this Azure, or you can call this, in our case, DigitalOcean. And Ansible would be the sort of the glue code, the script that will actually move your Docker container from your, I don't know, your truck that delivers it onto the ship and puts it onto Amazon or somewhere in the cloud where people can actually go there and use your product. All right, so we've got this application. It's an intranet, called in Dutch, so like a portal where employees of a company come together. You can see that it has articles. You can see that it has a time feed, quite like a Facebook page. But the advantage of this, and what I still found a super cool feature, the chat. So there's a reactive chat, and we use WebSockets to make sure that this data is synced between the server and the client. But what's really cool about this is that we can actually create environments for this for the customers of our customer who actually use this internet, which is completely in their own control. So this means that when you're chatting, you're not sending your messages to WhatsApp or to Facebook or to any other service that can actually just index this and find out all of your private stuff. But you can actually keep this under your own control, which is still for me a very valuable thing to deliver. And this is an application that we wrapped up into a Docker container, and we did something super cool with, and I wanted to show you, or at least explain you. And it's maybe also technical and heavy, so brace yourselves. Architecture is coming. So maybe we've seen some architecture already, but I still wanted to go through this because I thought it was such a nice project that we did, which is actually sort of, I'm very proud of this, that as a software agency that works for multiple clients, we're able to create this kind of architecture for one of our projects that will stay in service for like decades to come. So we don't do a lot of like short, how do you say this, campaigns or websites or things that have a short lifespan. We really create applications that stay with a company for a very long time, and that they actually turn into their core business. All right, so here we have this cool thing. I don't know if it's readable for everyone. Maybe we can increase the size a little bit. Okay, so this is the landscape that we're looking at right now. It's a lot of boxes, but maybe we start with the users that are on here. So this is also part of the software process, right? You cannot just start coding immediately. You want to know what your application looks like before you start it, so you can work out some stuff. So we have a couple of users. We have a reseller. This would be the customer of our customer, who is actually selling this product to companies that actually use the product. Then we have the end user, which is a web client. So it would be an employee from a company using the intranet. And we have an end user app. So it would be someone installing the app on their Androids and iPhones, who interact with the system. So what is happening, and I put some numbers on there to not completely get lost. So the reseller, this arrow should go the other way, goes into the intranet spawner, we call this. I don't know where this. I think it came from like the game industry, where you respawn after you die, the idea is that environments get spawned. So you go to this application, you log in, and you say, I want to get a new intranet, like a fresh environment, completely separated from all of the other environments. So then the internet spawner sends a create VPS command to the API of DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean you can replace with Amazon. You can do this as easily on Amazon, but DigitalOcean is like 4 times cheaper. So take this in mind. If you ever want to spin up a server, check out DigitalOcean first before you start investing in Amazon. And they have a very nice API as well. So you send a command, you say, I want to get a new VPS. So it rattles a bit and it gives you back an IP address where you can SSH into and do anything you want. Then DigitalOcean creates a new environment. So we have here a pool of VPSs. So we have a couple of instances that already exist, and we have a new one that just got created. So that's why I put the dotted line there. So DigitalOcean creates a new instance of this, of just a machine. It isn't an intranet already. It's just a machine with running Ubuntu and being able to host Docker images. All right. So we created the VPS. And we've got the IP address. So now we also register DNS subdomain because we want to be able to reach the machine by a human readable name and not by an IP address. So we actually register name of the internet company.nl and we link it to the IP address, which I thought was pretty cool that you could do this completely automated without people actually logging in and adding the entry yourself. So you register the subdomain, and then we send a ping to the continuous integration server. So that's the second server that we run, running Jenkins, which is how do you say this? It's a tool that helps you continuously deploy or execute scripts to do basically anything you want. So we configured it to run an Ansible script that will actually provision the server that we just created. So the final step is the Jenkins server knows actually which IP it needs to provision, and it provisions the server with the Docker images. So you can actually see these dotted lines over here. So we have different images for the software that we're running there. So this is our own software, the software that we created. You have a MongoDB instance, which is just the MongoDB database, and the Elasticsearch for when people upload their documents, they get indexed by Elasticsearch, and you can actually, when you're searching in the application, it searches through the contents of PDF files. So it's not just searching the title names when you're on your Mac or your PC just looking for a file, but it also looks through the contents of this file, which is very handy if you have a lot of documents and you want to find this one PDF that had the one word that you still remember. All right, so now this instance is created and the end users can log in and create their accounts and start using the software. So I thought it was pretty cool that I wanted to share this with you. And then, of course, this is not the demo enough, so I'm going to look into the code that actually does this. And just to make it a little bit overview, I'm going to go into the fifth step here and show you how that part is done, like how the server is being provisioned. I did not see that many hands for Docker experience, so I'll show this part. So the case is that we currently have we currently have